Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's 4 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Mountain, all points around the globe, so it must be time for Healthy You. Episode 16 today, and I have been anticipating this conversation for as long as I've known Stephanie. I'm not sure, did we meet in January? Did we meet in February? Um,
Somewhere around
Quite a
there.
while ago. And I was stumbling around Google Plus, and she had a cool post, so I went and looked at her, and nothing yucky on her post page. So opened up her about section, and there's her tagline: recovering investment banker. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what else this means, but I'm going to go ahead and circle this girl up. And we had a hangout, we had a chat, we had a conversation, because we all love Google Plus for that ability to take the relationship from plus and comment and go into a conversation. And from the moment Stephanie and I first started talking, it was just a finish each other's sentence in regards to health and money. And we're both firm believers that a lot of our stresses for today come from financial basis. You're going to fight with your husband, you're going to fight with your kids, you're going to fight with your boss, you're going to fight with everybody, and the underlying stresses is all money. So to broaden the scope of health and finance, take it from the bedroom to the boardroom, which is a strange kind of way to go, but what's causing conflict and strife in our home may be coming from our workplace. And Stephanie's going to just start on her path, and we're going to have an amazing conversation. We got into the happiness side of health and money in the green room, and that'll all come back. So sit back, check in. We've got Kirsten here running comment tracker and popping in as her husband, we found out, is a banker, and got the kids to worry about, and the whole gambit of health and finance. So Kirsten, say hi real quick, and then we'll get into Stephanie's first part of her path.
Hi everyone. My husband's actually an ex-banker now, so we've exited that world of finance also. But I hope you all enjoy the show, and I'm really looking forward to hearing Stephanie's path.
Yay! So, Steph, recovering investment banker.
Yeah, well, and we were talking about it. First off, before I start, thank you so much for having me, Tracy. And it's so funny the time that we've been talking about this that it took us this long. But everything happens for a reason. Everything happens at the right time. So this is it, and I'm very, very glad to be here. And I'm so pleased to meet Kirsten. And I think she's going to have some interesting contributions as well, kind of from her perspective, the effect that all the stress has on the families, and the issues that you face also as a small business owner, because I know that they've recently opened their own business too. So the whole notion of recovering investment banker kind of started as a joke. Not really a joke, but it was at a point in time where you were almost afraid, if you'd been in banking, to say that you'd been in banking. There was such a negative sentiment about anyone who'd been involved in finance. And it's very funny because I actually lived that the first time around when I graduated from college. So I came out of college in '91, which was shortly after Michael Milken had been put in jail. And I came out with a finance degree. So I'm looking around, I'm like, this doesn't feel so good. This is probably not going to work for me. I'm not going to find a job, am I? And so I promptly decided that I would go back to school and do a straight through MBA program, which I finished in 4 semesters, and try again, right? So I kind of pushed the deadline back and hoped that a year later it would be better. It wasn't. I worked in insurance. I worked in pretty much anything but finance for about the first 2 years after I finished my degree. And then I actually got involved in investment banking. I started working in real estate investment banking, which was really cool because it let me get exposed to a ton of transactions. It let me get exposed to a bunch of different people. I met some really brilliant people who helped me change the way that I looked at risk and reward, who helped me learn a lot more about the application of everything I'd learned in school. So in a lot of ways, it was an amazing experience. I got to travel all over the country. I eventually got to travel to France. I lived in Paris for a while. I was in London. You know, I'm not going to tell you it was all sucky. That's for sure. But um, as I'd been in the banking world for a while, you know, and I don't. You can maybe speak to this, Tracy, but I think maybe everybody has a notion when you're young that you have to pay your dues, right? You know, it's okay that I'm not happy right now because it's going to come with the next promotion or with the next trip I take or with when I buy a house or when I meet the right guy and girl. We have this kind of story that we tell ourselves that things are going to get better, but it's okay that I'm not happy right now. And
And
eventually, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's sad, but it's so true. I mean, there's many. I think I mention him on every show. I'm a huge advocate of Sean Aker, positive psychologist, that is teaching us and reminding us that that when and I have to do this in order to be happy. He's flipping that around and really showing us that we can. Sorry about that, I'm borrowing an office. You gotta love the solar ability, but we're not here to talk about sustainability today. But to take the notion that I've got to be happy now and all of that rest will come, because if we depend our happiness on the next thing, it will never come. And so how did you feel as you were jetting around the world and living in London and living in Paris? Is that where you met your husband? I have to ask that later. But was it just such a sense of accomplishment at this point for you? Did you feel the stress of all that you had to do? What was going on?
Well, and I think maybe that's what happened is I kept the next thing would come. I needed the next promotion. Well, I went in and I fought for it and I got it. And I got the salary, and then I wanted to go to the new office in Paris, and I got that too. And it wasn't a frustration of not being able to attain what I thought was going to make me happy. It was more that every single time I did it, I couldn't enjoy it, right? Like I didn't stay right there and say, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing." I've been in Paris for 4 months. I was like, okay, but you know what? I just heard at the people back in the office that they're going to give so and so a raise, and he's going to make VP before I do. Right? And so it was this notion of needing more and more and more and never being able to be satisfied with what I actually had, that because it was what I knew, associated with the banking industry. The truth is, I think it's just, a mindset, whether we're in banking or we own our own business or anything else. But I associated it with banking and said to myself, I got to get out of here. This is not going to work for me. I can't do this anymore. It felt like a treadmill. It felt like I keep running, but where am I going? I'm still in the same place.
So when did this epiphany happen? I mean, how old were you? What was your ranking? Was it an overnight thing? Like, God, this is crazy. We had Manny on the show, Manny St. Victor on the show last week, talking about kind of the same life choice of being just the feeling of being trapped, that, oh my God, this is the rest of my life. And, what was it like for you? Was it just one big yuck, I'm leaving?
Well, no, actually, it's funny that you mentioned my husband, because what happened was I was assigned to the Paris office for a while. I'd been there probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. And I met the man who's now become my husband. It was a setup. Anyway, we'll have to tell you that story a whole other time. with the girl that I worked with. Okay, and so I can never ever say that I hate investment banking 100%, because I never would have met my husband. I never would have met some very dear friends had I not been in banking. Okay, but anyway, so I met my husband, and I was based in DC at the time, and so I was supposed to go back to DC in a couple of months, and I said, oh, he's in Brussels, I'll be in DC, 8 hours away by plane. That's not going to work for me. Now, I really like this guy. I think I need to make a change. So my first big change was to leave the company I was working with and get a different job, work with a different company in London, so that I could be closer. We were still far apart, but closer. And I did that for I did that for about a year. And essentially what happened was I took a huge step forward when I moved to the new company. And I was poised to make another huge step forward after having been there for about a year. And I looked at it and I'm like, why? You know, why am I asked myself the question, why am I doing this? What's it going to get me? Is it going to make me any happier? And I realized, no, I'm in a city I don't particularly like with people that I don't really feel that close to. I only knew people from work because I worked all the time. I didn't have time to meet anybody else. And I'm dating someone and in love with someone who's 3 hours away. This is not what I want my life to look like. And so at that point, I just said, well, what am I going to do? And I decided, it's funny, I decided that I was just going to quit. I didn't actually tell him that I was going to quit until like a week before I was going to quit. And I was like, so, you know, what would you think about me moving to Brussels? And he was like, oh, there's something going on in Brussels. And I'm like, no, I think I'm just going to quit. And so he gets, you know, eyes like this, and he's like, okay, well, you know, if that's what would make you happy. And in that moment, when I realized, oh my gosh, this is someone who cares enough about me. Like his first question was not, but you know, how are you going to pay the rent? Or what are you going to do about the money? You know, or I'm not going to like you because you're not a banker anymore. You know, which was kind of the model I had in my head. He likes me because I have this high-flying job. He likes me because, you know, people respect me. When I saw that, it wasn't an epiphany, but at the same time, I was like, oh, there's a chance this could be different. And so I quit my job and I moved to Brussels. And then that same year, he got a different job and we moved to Switzerland and we both started working in the same company.
Fantastic. And for you to be able to take a deep breath and make that choice and take a deep breath and say, the next thing is there. I can keep going on this path that I'm on, this treadmill, you know, squirrel wheel or hamster wheel, as they call it, and just have that be the rest of my life. Or I can sit down and make some serious decisions as to my happiness. And, you know, I don't know the rest of your stress level at the time. Most people that I know that live that high-powered 60, 80-hour-a-week job, you know, they're not healthy in other aspects because, like you said, you didn't even have time to meet friends when you were in London, let alone eat right, exercise, sleep at all. You know, all of that stuff.
I have a theory about that, and that's, you know, these people who are working these crazy hours, 60 to 80 hours a week, what they're doing is they're on this treadmill and they're just eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep, work, and they have no time to think about what they want to do, what their body's doing, what they're eating, how much sleep they're getting, and it's a whole cycle. And it's not until people actually take some time out and think, you know, am I happy? What am I going to do about my life? That they can actually make life-changing decisions to put them on a path that's satisfying.
Well, and I think it's funny you mentioned that, but what popped to mind when you said that is quite often the structure of the company is such that they encourage that. They don't really want you out there getting existential about whether or not you like your job. You know, they need you working 12 hours a day. And, you know, the number of times that, you know, even when I had first started out, I was in Dallas, and I loved the guys I worked with, you know, it was terrific. I never went home for dinner. Our boss would invariably, at 6:30, when people were getting ready to walk out the door, come around and say, I'll order pizza if you guys will keep trucking tonight. Well, we were young. We said, sure, I'll hang out and have pizza. And instead of leaving at 6:30, we'd end up staying until 8:30 or 9. You know,
That's
we're all
crazy.
salaried.
8:30, that's early. You know, I can remember my husband doing all-nighters sometimes,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, just to get, you know, work out the door.
Oh, well, and that's the other thing is once you're in the mode of this is my focus, right? Which I think is exactly what Kirsten's saying is once you only focus on the work and everything else is in service of the work, then yeah, it's totally normal. Well, yeah, I have to stay an extra hour. Well, that's not a big deal. The work's going to get done. well, yeah, I have to pull an all-nighter. That's not a big deal. The work's got to get done. And it's only when you're able to take a step back and realize that the satisfaction you're getting from the work is not enough for you. And the money, and this is we've kind of gotten off the track of finance here, but hey, who cares? The money maybe that you thought was going to satisfy you is not working either. And the things that were really important, your relationships and your contact with people and all of that, has suffered to give you something that's not satisfying. I think at some point it happens that that opposition just becomes really clear in your head. At least it did for me. And you're like, wait, what am I doing? This is crazy. I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, I know I'm blessed with a mentor, David Bird, and in my business, and that's the first thing he sits us down and says when he starts working with us is, okay, here are all aspects of your life: family, home, relationships, entertainment, and oh yeah, here's work. And if you don't plan time for each one of the facets of your life, the one that you concentrate on the most will just expand and fill up all the other time, as time managers go. So yes, we're totally off of finance, but so you're working with your husband, or you're not married at this point though, right? So you're working with this cool guy, and you're trying to make your decisions more about full scope and full range. Did your work life and your personal life balance out a little bit? Are you starting to find that happiness not beyond the next promotion, but beyond the next walk in the park or something like that?
Well, and it's funny you asked that, because I think at that point in time, hindsight's always 20/20, but I think at that point in time, what I really had in my mind was the problem is banking, right? I just picked the wrong industry. So I hadn't completely connected the dots yet. I had just convinced myself that banking was the problem, right? So while I was really loving, obviously, being with my husband, my boyfriend at the time, and that was really great, I still was very driven, and I still was very focused on achieving something in my work, doing something important. And so I kind of was able to contrast and say, well, banking, I can't really see how that helped people. I can't really see how that necessarily was a good thing, a contribution to the world at large. Let me find something that is. And that's when we got involved with this startup in Switzerland, where they needed a lot of help because they were just starting out. And so I was lucky enough, at the beginning, it wasn't full-time, I was just kind of helping on a project basis. But as Hervé, my husband, got more involved, and we both saw that they did need a ton of help, some of it on the finance side, I said, okay, well, I'm happy to help, both because it was great to work with him, but also because I thought they could really use my help. They had investors that they didn't really know how to manage. They weren't sure they could meet all the requirements to get more money. It was a good fit. And through that process, I met a great group of people. We were able to build a team that was really amazing. And I took a lot of energy away from that experience, from the team, as well as the actual accomplishment of building a business, cracking the automotive market, which is very hard to do, especially if you don't have a lot of money, and then being able to sell the company. So I think maybe through that process is where I got more to the realization of, hey, you can do both. You can be successful in your business, you can work really hard, but you can still be happy right now, not at some point in the future.
Do you think some of that decision process, some of that realization come from you're now working with a team? I'm obviously a huge proponent of finding the support. That's what Healthy You is all about. That's what my business is all about, is the team mentorship and supports that you have for each other to be able to have those conversations and fill those gaps. And just like you said, they didn't really understand this part of it, and I did, so there's a collaboration, and through that collaboration there's no more competition. So you can flourish in the emotional side. I mean, we mentioned it in the green room. You can't really get emotional when you're in banking, because then you're a silly girl. And the boys can. What did you say? That the men can slam their fist down on the conference table and be good negotiators. But if we do it, it's that time of the month or something. I don't know.
You're
But
hysterical. What's wrong
yeah,
with you?
so this whole team building and realizing that there was more and you can be happy when, where did you go next?
Well, what happened was, I think just to take a step back, I think the other element, obviously, that came into my life is that I had 3 children. You can't neglect the fact that having children radically changes your perspective for fathers as well as for mothers, but I think particularly for mothers, there's the physical aspect, but there's also the aspect of, wait a minute, I need to be a good model. And I think Kirsten can say this maybe for her girls because she has girls, but for me, especially when I had my daughter in 2003, it really started to work on me. What am I teaching her? What am I showing her as what women do? I don't know, Kirsten, what do you think?
I think when you have children, your desire to keep on that same path that you're on changes because your perspectives in life change, and you want different things out of life, and you want to give your children good role models, and you want to spend time with them, and I think it changes your perspective about what you want out of your work.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a forced balance in regards to making that family a priority, and work, finance, and all of that side becomes less important because now you have these beautiful little people in your life. I mean, I've seen pictures of your kids. They're beautiful little people in your life. And so your perspective changes. And, through all of this, one of the things, Steph, that you and I have always talked about in our conversation is finance as it relates to the relationship. You said your boyfriend at the time didn't ask you, well, how are you going to pay the rent? You're just going to quit? But for many people, especially if they're women or men who decide to quit their job and go out and work for themselves, how they're going to pay the rent is kind of a huge, big question. So through finance and stress and being able to have conversation, what are you guys thinking right now that you've got children in the mix too?
Right. Well, and at that point, when I made that decision, it was just the 2 of us, right? So it was a little easier, to make the decision back in 2099. Yeah, 99. God, that's a long time ago. 1999. It was a little easier then because I didn't feel like necessarily there was so much to risk. Well, worst case, I'll work at the cash register. I'll find a job somewhere I can make money. It's true that when we moved to Switzerland, where we both had kind of put all our eggs in one basket, we're working for this company, we're not sure the company's going to make it, and everything that we earn comes out of there, that's when we started to ask ourselves some hard questions. And we didn't always get a good answer. I'll be honest. Sometimes we just did it on faith, right? It's just like, well, we were in a small town. It wasn't like I had a lot of other options anyway. It was really kind of, we used it as encouragement to make sure that we kept doing the right thing for the business, so we knew the business could survive, because otherwise there wasn't a lot of other options.
And do you think it mattered because you were doing it for yourself rather than a large corporation?
Well, we weren't the only investors. In fact, I personally wasn't an investor. My husband was an investor in the company, but we did have other investors in the company, so it wasn't just us. But I think it's funny you say that. I don't think at the beginning that was it, but I think as we built the team, when we would talk about, like we'd go home at night and we're like, okay, so I don't know what's going to happen next. There were times, for example, that we couldn't necessarily pay the salaries, and so we had to wait. We would pay everybody else, but we had to wait. And those were moments when you start to get a little accelerated heart rate, and you're like, okay, is this the right thing? Am I making the right decision here? But we always were I think it comes back to what you said, Trace. We were always motivated by the fact that we were creating something really cool with a bunch of cool people. And so it wasn't just we can't let ourselves down, it was also we can't let them down. And we'll find a way to make it work. Even if it's not really clear right now, we'll find a way to make it work.
Did you have, I mean, you talked about the conversations and the tough choices. Did you talk about that whole competition with the Joneses and it's okay to move into a smaller house and drive a 10-year-old car instead of a brand new car, and the gadgets and the gadgets? And because I think for a lot of people, the quest to have the newest, the best, the latest, and I don't want to get into the whole credit card debt concept because that's just too big and we don't have much time left, but they just have to keep up and they have to do it, and they don't understand that the harder choices when you, especially when you go into entrepreneurship, the harder choices of I'm going to sacrifice for X amount of time, and I'm going to set good goals, and I'm going to reach these goals, and I'm going to build a great team. You know, I don't need the next best thing. My tiny little car is a 2000, but you know, it still gets 53 miles to the gallon, so I'm going to keep it. But you know, that next latest thing. Did you guys as a family have to sit down and make those conversations?
Well, and it's funny, as you were describing it, I was thinking, and I'm like, not really, but I think that that's where maybe the fact that I quit and didn't have a job had made me a little more prudent. You know, kind of at that point when I jumped off the cliff, if you will, and I'm like, okay, I have no money except what I have in savings. This is gonna last for a while. So, you know, let me take a step back and think about, before I buy this, is this really what's important to me? And I think that maybe helped curb some of the issues. And I will say that there is a very different, because we were in Europe at the time, there is a very different approach to credit in Europe. It is not at all like it is here. So, you know, the notion of having 5 different credit cards with a $10,000 credit limit on each one and being able to rack up $50,000 of credit card debt just doesn't exist there. So, you know, from a certain
perspective. Did you see Kirsten's face when you said that?
I would die if I lived a life like that. I could not handle that.
Oh, my head would explode.
It's just not in my realm of consciousness to have lots of credit cards and to run up debt.
Well, I think that's where a lot of our stress comes from. It's where a lot of our anxiety comes from, because that is the mentality over here. Just put it on a credit card, and then it just really gets stressful. There's no other way to say it.
And I think that's, and you know, this is a place where Trace and I, you and I have already talked about this. I think that's one of the hardest things to buck being here, is this idea of just because I can qualify doesn't mean I should. You know, because the counterparty of that, when we came back to the US, we didn't have credit cards. And so when we came here, we had no credit history. So had I needed to get a job right away, I probably wouldn't have been able to get a job right away because I had no credit history. I didn't have bad credit history, but I had no credit history, right? Because I'd been out of the country for 10 years. And so it was very strange because at a certain point, our banker was like, I get that you don't want to use debt, but probably at some point you really should get a credit card just so people know that you have a FICO score.
That's hilarious.
Well, but it's true, right? And it's one of those things where I see how easily, now that we both have a card, we've fallen into the habit of using them. And so, you know, I completely understand why it's difficult for people here as opposed to Europe, where it's harder to obtain credit, to struggle with that more. And I think, you know, I've got a bunch of little different things I do, but one of the things I do is before I get in the car to go to a store, I have to ask myself what it is I'm really going for. You know, am I going because I'm irritated? Am I going because I can't stand to listen to anyone else scream in the house anymore? Or do I actually need to buy things? And if I actually need to buy things, do I have a list? Because I can't go until I have a list. Otherwise, it just goes completely off the rails.
And just out of curiosity, what store are you sitting in front of when the answer is just to get out of the screaming house? Because I'm curious. And the fact that I have, 35, 40 minutes to drive to my nearest store, and if I want an actual big city shopping store, it's a 3-hour drive. So just curious, Steph, what store are you sitting in front of? And that's the answer.
Got a big red bullseye.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. We won't do sponsorship, but we always go long, and I don't care. We are at 2:31, so we've been our 30 minutes. But I really want to spend some time talking to you about what you're doing now, because you're getting ready to help so many people get over this fear and this stress when it comes to their personal business, when it comes to their business, and that's going to flow into their personal life. And to be able to help people understand and remove that anxiety and stress. I'm just so proud of what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about, your famous word, financeability, because I love it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Tracy. I really appreciate that. And I really love the fact that you've kind of been here from the start. You've been with me through all the different iterations, and I don't think this is going to work. And, so I really appreciate all your support. Essentially, what I'm doing now, I've created a way for businesses to assess their ability to get financing. Because this is one thing, as a business owner, your business is like your biggest asset. It's also the source of income for you and your family. It's the way you take care of your life. And for a lot of people, as soon as you start talking about going to the bank to get a loan or talking to someone about investing, becoming a partner in your business, they freeze up and they get really nervous and they're like, oh, I don't like that. I don't think I want to hear about that. And what I really want to do with financeability is help all business owners understand where they are, because I think the first thing to do is understand, where am I today? Then find a way to look for financing without necessarily wasting a lot of time and energy. So, I've kind of got these options, which one should I head for right away? But as you go down that path to getting the money you need right now, also finding a way to grow your business so that later on, all of the financing options become open to you if you choose to use them. And to me, that's kind of the thing I really want to emphasize, and why I'm so excited that we're talking about health and finance today, health and money, is, money or financing for your business is just a tool. A lot of people get really hung up on, I have a 6-figure salary, or I have a $500,000 home, or I have a $50,000 car. The truth is, money is just a tool, okay? It's like anything else. It's like your brain. It's like your education. It's like the team that you build. It is a tool that you can use in your business that can help you move forward. But you got to know about it and use it wisely for it to help you. Otherwise, all it does is control you. And that, if I could say anything to business owners, it would be, don't be afraid of it, but get educated about it. Because you can't make good decisions if all you're doing is operating from a place of fear. If all you're saying is, well, this is the one that scares me the least, so that's what I'm going to do, that's not a great way to make decisions.
No. And, if you can, with knowledge comes power. With knowledge becomes understanding. And with knowledge becomes a plan of action. And all of those things are easy, because if you look at, we talk about it in Healthy You all the time, in that healthy starters community, category, is don't look at the top of the Himalaya, but what is your next step? And your next step is finding something that works for you, for your family, for your business. And I just will have to give you, kudo again. I'm so proud for what you're doing, because I think the world needs to embrace and is embracing entrepreneurship. And I think more people would do it if they knew how to get financing for it, whether it's a huge, big startup or something little. We all have such passion, but how do we take our passion and be able to live it and work it and do it and provide for our family with it? And you're giving everybody the opportunity to do that stuff, and I'm just so proud for you. So, Kirsten, do you have any closing thoughts as we're just getting into, 6 minutes over?
I was just thinking that, everyone, well, most people have money, and how they choose to spend it is up to them. And I would encourage people to think wisely about how they spend their money in business and in their personal life, and to think about spending the money before they do it.
That's a good point. Just like Steph with her, why am I here at the store? Am I just buying to satisfy an urge, or am I buying because I need it? And, everybody that knows me knows I'm a huge proponent of dream boards. Budgeting. I helped a family do a dream board a couple of weeks ago, and they put some stuff that is some pretty expensive stuff on their dream board, and their kids got involved because it's a family thing. And, of course, the kids put a trip to Disney. And, how are we going to manage that? How are we going to afford that? And what sacrifices are we going to make today so that we can have that? Yes, maybe we're going to have to cook dinner at home. How wonderful would that be? More nights during the week instead of going out to dinner. So, going out to the movies became game night. How wonderful is that? So it's health and finance and dream and goal reaching all motivated into the concept of finance. So I'm going to let Steph say a goodbye and tell us where to find her.
Oh, okay. Well, first off, thank you so much, Tracy, and thank you so much, Kirsten, for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure, as always, to chat with you guys. And, if I could leave you with one parting thought, I would say understand what's important to you. And in those moments where you are weak and you're like, oh, I just need to go shopping, or, oh my gosh, I just want to go. If it's a business, a lot of times it's office supplies, right? Like, you're having a bad day at the office and you're like, I'm just going to go buy some Post-it notes. I'm going to feel better. When you're in that moment and you're just, oh, I got to do something, ask yourself, where am I really trying to go? What do I want my business to be? Or what, is my family dream a trip to Disneyland? And maybe by contrasting that dream, it's going to help you talk yourself off that ledge of, office supplies or Target or whatever it is, because you're going to say, yeah, you know what, but this momentary irritation that I feel right now is going to pass, and this thing, my goal, is much more important. So if you can try to focus in on where it is you're trying to go and really ask yourself the question, is what I'm about to do going to get me closer to that goal? And if not, have the strength to walk away and say, you know what, I'll walk around the block maybe instead of going to Target. I did that for a while. That worked really well for me. So if it can help anyone, I hope it does. And if you're specifically focused on business finance, I would love it if you'd come to finance-ability.com. We have a free assessment tool that'll help you understand what type of finance you're qualified for right now. But we also have other resources that are going to help you build value in your business so that all of the financing options become available for you long term.
Fantastic. Take a walk instead of buying Post-it notes. That's a really long hashtag, but it's fantastic. And unfortunately, we come to another close of Healthy You, What's Your Path? And just recorded the trailer for next week's show. We are going to do kind of episode 17.2 because we're back to body, and everybody knows we're doing a body series with Teresa Spencer. And we're going to get into, it's fall, kids are going back to school. We're going to get into the healthy body aspect of getting the kids back to school. Healthy lunches, healthy snacks, trying to pick a good sport for them that makes them feel good about themselves, and included maybe some exercise tips on what we as soccer moms can do while our kids are practicing, and just really get into healthy body as it pertains to fall and back to school and the support that we feel. So we will see you next Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, all points around the globe. And I hope you've learned a lot with how to have your money be a little bit more healthy for you with Stephanie. And see everybody next week.